Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major General David Mulhall. David is on his final duty in uniform. Sir, we thank you and your family for your service. We warmly welcome the family of Private Ernest Francis Sheargold, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial, also students on behalf of North Pine Christian College from Queensland. If you're able, I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway lands. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Ernest Francis Sheargold. Ernest Sheargold was born in January 1899, the son of William Anderson Sheargold and Mary Jane Sheargold. He was born in the goldfield town of Rushworth in Victoria, but the family moved to Footscray, a western suburb of Melbourne. Ernie, as he was known, attended Footscray State School. After leaving school, he worked as a clerk to a timber merchant. While Sheargold was at school, he served for 4 years in the senior cadets. As soon as he turned 18, he joined the Australian Imperial Force, with his parents giving their consent for him to be sent overseas. He enlisted in the 24th Australian Infantry Battalion in February 1917 and spent time at the Army camp in Royal Park. He left Melbourne on the transport ship Ascanius in May, bound for England. Arriving in England in July 1917, Sheargold undertook specialised training to become a signaller. Perhaps aided by his earlier clerical experience, he excelled at this training and earned a first-class signaller certificate. He was transferred to the 22nd Battalion as a signaller in March 1918 and left England for France. At this time, the Germans had launched what was to become their last major offensive of the war, now known as the German Spring Offensive. One of the major gains of the German forces had been the French town of Villers-Bretonneux on the Somme River. Australian and British forces had recaptured the town in late April and now sought to push the German forces over the Unker River north of the Somme. On the 19th of May 1918, the 22nd Battalion was stationed near the town of Villers-Bretonneux. At 2 a.m, the Australian artillery began shelling the German position over the river, and the Australians advanced. They had taken the Germans by surprise and quickly took many prisoners and captured several machine guns. The D Company, which was Sheargold's company, was the first of the battalion to enter the battle. Although they achieved all of their objectives, D Company suffered heavy casualties. In the early morning, Sheargold was struck by shrapnel in the abdomen. Carried by 4 German prisoners of war, he was evacuated to a casualty clearing station at Vignicourt. He remained there for 2 weeks, but his condition worsened, and he died on the 3rd of June 1918. He was 19 years old. He was buried at Vignicourt British Cemetery alongside nearly 600 Commonwealth soldiers of the First World War. 2 of Sheargold's relatives also served in the war. His uncle, Private Ernest Lapierre, died of wounds received in Palestine in 1917. His older brother, Rifleman Frederick George Sheargold, served in the New Zealand Expeditionary Force and returned to his home in New Zealand in 1919. Ernest Sheargold was survived in Australia by his parents and his 5 younger sisters. His grieving family had the following inscribed on his headstone: "Our beloved son and brother, who gave his dear young life for us." Private Ernest Francis Sheargold is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Ernest Francis Sheargold, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
I invite you all to please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we, the left, grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys and students, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.